We have recently seen a significant increase in inquiries coming from South Africans looking for information about how to relocate to Europe, how to get that Plan B in place, and the press is reporting on multiple wealthy South Africans actually externalizing their capital and leaving the country. My name is Alana, I work for Migronis, and we are a global citizenship and residency by investment company. In this video, I want to share with you a little bit more about what the process is to obtain a Portugal Golden Visa or just to relocate to Portugal. We'll talk a bit about the documents that are required, the process you have to follow, and what the opportunities are, and very important, what you can expect once you arrive in Portugal. I want to start first with the documentary requirements when you are considering a move like this. Now, generic to all Golden Visa programs or all relocations for South Africans is the challenge we have with civil documents. I think anybody that has ever tried to apply for a police clearance certificate, a marriage certificate or a birth certificate knows that it takes a tremendous amount of time and patience to obtain these documents in South Africa. Unfortunately, when you're moving overseas with these documents, they expire. So I would urge you to not do these too soon. Be aware that you need them and get some local help to obtain these certificates, but don't get them too soon, because by the time you've gone through the process, your documents would have expired and then you have to go through the whole process again. If we go directly into what one needs once you decide to make the move to Portugal, the very first thing you need is a NIF, or a fiscal identity number. It's like a tax number in Portugal. It literally is the keys that opens the doors to Portugal. There is nothing you can do in this country without that NIF. You cannot even become a student at a university without a NIF. So it's a very important first step for you to take. Once you have your NIF, you are then allowed to open a bank account. Now this once again becomes interesting for South Africans. We love to complain about things in South Africa, but we have a very sophisticated financial services sector. And our banking services actually work really well. The apps work, and maybe it works better for us because it's in a language we understand. There's a multitude of banks in Portugal that will allow you to open your bank account remotely, so you don't have to be here to do it, but it all happens in Portuguese. So until you have that bank account open, even the interfaces on the ATMs speak in Portuguese to you for the first 2 or 3 pages. So you have to really understand what you're doing before you get to the crux of it. What really is a problem in Portugal in this whole process, regardless of what visa you choose to use to get here, is that the banking service is extremely slow. It's very bureaucratic. Everything takes time. So you can open the bank account remotely, and there's lots of banks that will help you do that. Millennium, Novo Banco, Caixa Bank, to name a few. They all have this remote service facility, and although they advertise that it takes 2 weeks, reality has shown that in the last couple of months that time frame has stretched to about 6 weeks. So one of the things you have to remember is that opening a bank account is part of the bureaucracy of Portugal. It takes a very long time at the moment, but you are doing this remotely. You do not have to actually be here. You're not sitting at the bank waiting for it to be open. So you've submitted your application, you've been warned, just know that it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks and your bank account will be open. So first you need a NIF, then you need a bank account, and then you can take the next step in terms of how you're actually going to relocate to Portugal. So typically, people would look at the different types of visas that they can then invest in, and most of our investors look at a Golden Visa. I think South Africans really like the Golden Visa process because it has so many different investment options available. You can invest in real estate from as little as 280,000 euros, although in South African rand terms that's quite a lot of money for all of us, but you can make a 280,000 euro investment all the way up to 500,000 euros or more. You can invest in funds, and I think South Africans are very familiar with the fund market because this is a structure that we used to, similar to the unit trusts in South Africa. These are private equity funds, and you have to invest a minimum of 500,000 euros in those to qualify. So the Golden Visa category is very popular because it means that once it's approved, you can move to Portugal permanently and live here, or you can stay at home, run your business, and only spend 7 days a year in Portugal in order to be allowed to renew your visa for the next year. So it's 7 days per year or 2 weeks every 2 years in order to be able to renew your visa. So the main difference between doing a Golden Visa is in this timing. Of course, you have to make the investment, but you have the flexibility of how little time you can spend here. As soon as you're looking towards the other visas, the D visas, for instance the D7, which is often used by people that want to permanently relocate and live here, the D7 requires that you spend at least 6 months of the year in Portugal before you can renew it. So if you are ready to move here permanently, then that is a possibility. The last one I want to talk about is called the HQA, or the Highly Qualified Applicant Visa. Now that is typically for successful business people. So this is not for budding entrepreneurs. This is a visa where you already have to have credentials as a successful business owner or entrepreneur or very senior manager in a business. It's a partnership with local universities where you get the opportunity to register a business, and all the IP that you develop in that business belongs to you. So it partners with the university research department. You do some R&D, so you have to have the type of business that would be interesting for them from an education point of view. It has to be something that is scalable for yourself, because you are going to pay a €175,000 fee to the company that structures this for you, and that then buys you 3 years of business registration, support services. So you're basically buying an incubation service, but you have to have those credentials. So very important that you cannot apply for HQA if you're not already a successful business person or entrepreneur with a good business plan. Our next topic is a little bit more interesting. This is all about real estate. Now, as South Africans, we are a little bit spoiled, and maybe Africans in general, because we have more space, we enjoy a more sophisticated lifestyle, we enjoy our braais, and when we come to Europe, we're looking for exactly that same opportunity, and it doesn't always exist. When you come to Portugal to invest, you have to separate your investment decision and how you qualify for whichever visa you're applying for from what the ultimate family home is going to be. So if, for instance, you are making a Golden Visa investment, those investments are not typically suited for family homes. And a lot of people speak to me about their friend and their family member years ago that bought this beautiful place and have made so much money. But the Portuguese market has moved significantly in the last few years, and property has become expensive. So I think it's important when you make this decision to make that separation, decide how you're going to qualify, and one day when you do move to Portugal, spend a little bit of time and travel. I recently went on an extensive trip through Portugal, starting in the north, traveling through Lisbon, all the way down south through the Alentejo to the Algarve, and I put together a report for you that shows just what the typical family home looks like, what it costs to invest in and what it costs to rent. So you can have a look at that here. If you'd like more information of what we did while I was on this trip, you're welcome to go and have a look at the videos that we've already shown. The next topic is all about taxes. Unfortunately, it's not a very cool topic. Nobody wants to talk about tax. We'd all rather talk about food and wine, but unfortunately we have to cover this one. I get a lot of inquiries about how the tax system works in Portugal. I think the most important part about your taxes is, when you're considering this move, is get professional advice. I know there are multiple Facebook groups out there that are giving all of us advice, and some of them do really good work, but we all know that tax is a very individual thing. So get professional help before you make this decision or during the process of the decision, so that you don't get caught. We all see that SARS has a very long arm, and they certainly have teeth recently. We've seen a lot of people being arrested, a lot of people being prosecuted, and I don't think you want to fall foul of SARS at this point. One of the many things that influences people's decision of where they're going to have the next family home, especially if they have a young family, is where the kids are going to go to school. So I've prepared for you a list of all the good international schools, the top 15 or so international schools in Portugal, and there's many of them, IB schools, British schools, American schools, as well as the top 5 Portuguese schools. And you can find this information in the description below the video. There will be a link down there. I think one of the reasons why people actually decide to put their kids in school, in a Portuguese school, is because kids learn the language so much faster. And of course that leads us to the next point of conversation, is how easy is it to learn Portuguese? Now, I have for many years told people it's not so difficult because Google says it's the 5th most difficult or most easy language to learn. But man, I am struggling a little bit. I've been here for a few months, and I get stuck with some strange words because the pronunciation is very different. What I do find though, because I live in a more touristic part, I live in Cascais, many people speak English, and you can get away with not speaking too much Portuguese until you travel into the countryside, Or for instance, you get stuck at the gas station because you're wanting to put fuel in the car, and unlike South Africa, there's nobody helping you here, so you have to figure it out yourself, and all the instructions are in Portuguese. So many times the people working at the gas stations don't speak English, but they're very friendly and they will always find somebody to come around and come and help you. So it is important that you learn a little bit of the language before you arrive here. It just makes your life easier. And of course, if you're moving here because ultimately you want to get your citizenship or permanent residency, you're going to have to pass that language test anyway. So start learning and be prepared before you arrive. Let's talk a little bit about food. I think for many of us that move to Europe, food is one of the big attractions. I have found the food and produce in Portugal amazing. I've heard some South Africans complain about the lack of variety in terms of the organic food available, but I've certainly not had a problem finding really good quality fresh fruit, vegetables straight from the farm. The butcheries are amazing. There's a couple of bakeries around as well that at the markets will sell beautiful bread. So I'm really finding the quality of the food very good. There's some specific things that as a South African I am struggling with. There's a few things that we all like to use. Mrs. Ball's chutney is a staple in any South African's house, and that's not readily available on the shelves here. You can order many of these things from international websites and they'll deliver, but it's exceedingly expensive when you do so. So things like your in-apartment spices and the sauces. Somebody said to me the other day they've never been able to find salt and vinegar chips, which I've never searched for, but that's not available. So there are a few South African products that you can't get on the shelf here. So you might want to ask somebody to help you stock up the stash every now and then if you're feeling a bit deprived. Even the wood that people use to braai here with is different. It's not kameeldoringhout or sickle wood. Even the charcoal doesn't burn that long. So I am now ready and desperate and at the point where I'm going to go and invest in a gas cooker so I can have a proper braai tonight. So one of the more serious topics that I get asked about is security in Portugal. And I think because South Africa has such a challenge with security, that's a very big concern for us, and rightly so. When you come to Portugal, there's numbers of statistics, and the one that I most commonly see is that Portugal is ranking 4th out of 163 countries in the World Peace Index, compared to South Africa that ranks 118th. Now what that means in practice though, I think is more important than the statistics. For me personally, having moved to Cascais, the first night I went out for dinner, I got stuck a little bit. I had a few glasses of wine and I suddenly realized it was 11:30 and I had to walk home. And I was actually a little bit nervous, so I did the normal South African thing, grabbed my bag, clutched it around me and started walking very firmly back to my house. And then I realized nobody was actually even looking at me. Nobody was paying any attention. There's no reason to be concerned about your security. The next day I went to the beach and there were loads of kids on their bicycles, little kids on their bicycles cycling down to the beach. Kids use the train, public transport is safe. And I really think it's a weight off your shoulders when you move here and you suddenly realize that you do not actually have to be concerned and look over your shoulder the whole time. You do of course have to be a little bit sensible. There's still pickpockets, there's still petty crimes, house break-ins, etc. So lock your door, lock your car, hang on to your wallet when you're in the busy city, but you don't have to feel personally nervous that you're physically in danger at any point. All right, well that's it for today. There's a lot more information available about this topic, but I chose the top few things that people are always asking me about. So from the past few years of experience, this is the information that people are typically looking for. If you like the information I shared today, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to have a personal conversation with me, my WhatsApp number is listed in the text below. You're welcome to send me a WhatsApp. And you can always leave some comments as well. It's very interesting for us to get the feedback from you to see what it is that you'd like more information on. So thank you very much and tot ziens.